So, one of the big things I find interesting in the difference between our MMO and tabletop is that an MMO you can kind of um sorry Neo, okay, you can be involved in multiple groups with the same character simultaneously pretty easily. Um, where in a tabletop game, your character is pretty much set for the group that it's in. There's not really a way to be like, oh well, my character is involved in this campaign, and the same exact characters involved in this campaign, and the same exact characters involved in this campaign.
I mean, there was attempts to kind of do that type of thing though.
Oh, were there?
Yeah, in tabletop basically there was a kind of the concept of tournament or convention gaming.
Okay.
And the idea was like you'd have a kind of a consistent setting, and you had to kind of run official game, participate in official games, but you could take a character from one game to another pretty freely. And like this was a little bit, I guess, like an early RP, in early tabletop RPGs, you had a little bit more of that because like there was if you're playing D&D, you kind of had the a general guidelines for what was going to happen because you have the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and items and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it became much more hairy when like you had people that were super creative. Do things like, oh, I'm gonna give you guys, Star Trek phasers in a medieval setting, and like, and then you go to another game, you're like, oh no, I totally have the Star Trek phaser, totally legit, given to me from my this other campaign. There was also, but even more recently, there's a in tabletop gaming, there was kind of a thing called the OSR, the Old School Renaissance. And the idea was that people were going to basically, they liked the older versions of games, particularly the older versions of D&D.
Wait,
and so
second edition, third edition.
Like no, like before that. You're talking about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons, which was before that.
I gotcha.
Basically, like what was called like the red box, the little brown books.
Right.
When they started talking about different kind of versions and editions of it, and so there was a kind of this attempt to kind of create this system called what they called flail snails. And so it was it was just a little it basically was kind of an agreement about like having kind of compatible characters, having a generally agreed upon level of power. And the idea was that like people. I've mostly heard about this on Google Plus. Rest in peace.
Speaking of old school.
Oh yeah. Lol. But basically kind of having this. And so basically, like, people could run games and they could basically take their characters one between another. In general, this doesn't work, very well. Mostly because, like I said, power levels could be vastly different, or even just theme and whatnot. Like this guy that has you might have like a someone who basically has a very comedic character, isn't like optimized within an inch of its life. Going up against a bunch of people basically like, really want to play heavy combat characters and have everything super high tuned.
Right.
A lot of times, that's just not going to be fun for the person who is and it's different, like because if you start a campaign, everybody's like, hey, we're going to make combat beast characters. It's a little bit different because you can be like, okay, how do I do that? Oh, here, let me show you. Because the type of people that want to run combat-based characters are generally the type of people that are really good at doing that type of thing, and min-maxing and whatnot. I guess that kind of touches upon another thing too, like the kind of the attitude that you didn't want to min-max your character. There was basically min-maxing was basically considered a kind of a bit of an insult to people. Oh, you're a min-max. You're not. You're not a real role player. And also kind of working with the concept of what we used to call munchkins.
Oh my.
Which basically, and this is kind of like, again, this is a very insulting tone of, like, it's kind of like, oh, well, you're a munchkin, you're, basically you're like a kid who, you're basically like a kid who basically, you basically just wants to win. You're focusing on winning.
Right.
Rather than on actual role-playing and storytelling and whatnot.
I'm gonna have to use the restroom real fast.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
I guess.
so you go on your talk. I'll be right back.
I got just go on my rambling tangent.
Right,
Back in my day, kids had respect. No, I think that so basically, the attitude was that you weren't supposed to focus so much on combat, and if you did, another great example is like the World of Darkness system. The group I played with, basically played it wrong in university, because they wanted to basically play, like what was kind of derisively called superheroes with fangs. The idea that they wanted to play the vampires as kind of these super cool, super tough, awesome guys, who basically could beat up the bad guys and take what they want, or even be the bad guys. Because a lot of the idea of the World of Darkness games is kind of like supposed to be very horrific. You're a person who is also this hideous monster, either a vampire or werewolf or whatever, and kind of dealing with that duality of being, of like trying to retain your humanity while also coming to terms with the fact that you are this monster. And so people get kind of very judgmental about that. Again, it doesn't stop people. There's people will play very munchkin, very combat heavy games. Like I said, like I had fun. Like I tend to be a little bit more of the storytelling type of person, but I still had fun with it. Because we told interesting stories in our games. They may not have been the oh poor woe is me, my poor tortured soul type of stories that other people would have preferred. But we told stories, and we had some really great times. I had a lot of characters that I had a lot of fun with. It was mostly about where it was mostly about just kind of like doing interesting things, or violating assumption. Even if and it's one of those things that even if the character is very combat capable, or very strong, and even min-max, you can still potentially tell interesting stories with it. Because defining things as as kind of a weakness or a foible is a relative thing.
Okay, I return. Sorry about that.
That's fine. I was just talking about kind of like munchkinism, and basically you can still have fun and tell stories even with things being very kind of combat centric. And I guess that's kind of I guess that kind of applies to MMOs a bit, as I imagine, since MMOs are basically completely defined. The gameplay is almost completely defined in terms of combat. My Final Fantasy 14 character is he can kill people in dozens of different ways because he's got all the classes maxed.